Very excited about this particular training because we're talking about, is there a recession with chiroeconomics? Does any sort of economic challenges that are going on in the public actually impact the chiropractic clinic? And I'm in this with you. I'm in the fight every week. On Wednesday, I go in and I just do close after close, so to speak. I'm meeting with new patients walking in the door, or I am actually working with people who have come back for the reports and going over care plans. And if you're not prepared now, more than ever than you've needed to have been prepared in history, you're in a lot of trouble because it is challenging. Our people walk in and it's a different objection, different set of challenges, different concerns with each person, because we do live in a odd time. And as a result, you have to just become a communication master. When I was a college wrestler, our coach used to say, you have to love the fight. So you have to be okay with confrontation, working through it. Because I've really never loved the idea as a doctor that we talk about confrontation. You know, I do teach a lot from the topic of crucial confrontations. But what I don't like about that term is it's really not confrontive when you truly care about people. If you feel like God has really put you here to save lives, it's not really a confrontation. So if somebody is drowning and going down for the third time, it's not a confrontation to grab them and drag them ashore. Even if they're fighting back and thrashing. And if you've ever taken any swim saving lessons and gone through any lifeguard training, they talk about the dangers of the thrashing victim. Even though there's a confrontation there, it's not. I'm going to do whatever it takes to save your life. If you're trapped in a house that's burning to the ground and you're going to die, but you don't know it's on fire, I don't feel like it's a confrontation to grab you and drag you out of there just because you're ignorant of the fact that you've got only minutes left to live. If I'm pounding on the door, you know, there's the old chiropractic metaphor of the hotel's on fire. You wake up, you're the only one that knows, and it's 15 stories and it's, 50 rooms per story, and you've got to knock on every door. I don't feel it's confrontation for me to be waking you up because I'm saving your life. So I think first and foremost, as we launch into this idea that recession doesn't impact chiroeconomics, is that you've got to release yourself from this idea that I'm confronting the people when I'm talking about getting started in chiropractic and in my care plans and getting them to pay the money, because usually, although they would love to see their insurance pay for it, usually these days, the insurance pays very little or none of it at all. Now, in my case, I feel like I'm possibly even more equipped to have this discussion, or more relevant, because our care plans are often 5-figure care plans, all cash, because we have chiropractic and regenerative care. We have other businesses within the business that we're offering to people. They're coming from all over the world. But where this clinic I go to on Wednesday is located, I mean, it's great when they've flown in from Massachusetts or Michigan, or they've driven from one of the colleges in the state of Florida. That's great. They're coming. They know we're going to the best of the best, and we're ready to pay the cash. But locally, we have the highest concentration of retired military veterans in the country. And these people are on a fixed income. They have the VA that doesn't cover, and yet their care plan is often 5 figures. So those people are used to spending zero on their health care and very little in their life in general. And yet we're getting the vast majority of them to begin care with us because, again, we're winning this battle on behalf of saving the life of our patients. So the first thing I want to really address that's out there, I'm hearing all the time from clients and chiropractors around the country and hearing it in seminars and seeing it online, is this idea that the recession is impacting the patient's desire to begin care because they're just saying it's too expensive. Even if it's just hundreds or just a few $1,000s, that it's too expensive. And so you hear this idea that, well, there's a recession. People are concerned about the economy, especially if you yourself are looking online and you're reading people say, hey, we're going to all digital currency. We're all going to go broke, or the economy's crashing. There won't even be an election in 2024 because it's gotten so bad. If you're reading these kinds of things consistently, then you are actually projecting on the patients that there's this fear over money. So I'd say the first thing when it comes to, does the recession actually impact the economics in your clinic? It first starts with your own mind. I've been at this a while. I've seen all kinds of economic hits the country's taken. I've seen full-blown recessions. I've seen them actually call us being in a depression. I've been through all of that, 9/11, 2008. There's been a lot of market crashes, a lot of bank failures in my time. And I've primarily practiced in Central Florida, where people work for places like Disney or Universal Studios or the different hotels, and they all get impacted during downturns. Yet I've never let my mind go into a recession, so it's not impacted my staff or the results we're getting from our patients when it comes to their starting care. And we're going to talk about specifics. I'm going to give you some very pragmatic steps to take in this, but you have to really win this battle in your own mind first. So when I'm coaching a chiropractor or speaking around the profession or even working outside of chiropractic in other types of businesses, the recession is not really happening in the economy. There's really a recession of thought that goes on in your mind. And while it can impact the mind of the patient also, you can overcome it if you know the right steps to proper communication when it comes to money. The worst part is that if you're having a recession of the mind, you're also passing on not only to the patients, but your staff. So staff already, are people who, they're paid generally some hourly wage or a moderate salary. So they already look at your care plans and probably can feel the patient's pain or side with the patient thinking, yeah, it is kind of expensive. I do wonder how you can pay for it. So if you're really worried about money and costs and is our care too much, if you're there as the doctor, man, you are going to really quickly drag your staff underwater as well. So let's get into it. First of all, let's cover some facts, because one critical part of crucial confrontation is that it's fact-based. It's not opinion-based. These are not my thoughts on the matter. These are facts. And here's a fact for anybody that thinks that there is an economic problem in their area, because I hear that a lot. That's kind of become a standing joke in chiropractic consulting, is somebody says, well, you don't understand my area. And believe me, no matter what area you're in, what the insurance is like, or what the economic situation is in your area, there's thousands of other doctors and businesses in areas just like yours or your actual area that are doing just fine or killing it. In fact, the most thriving chiropractors have tended to be people in bad areas where there isn't good insurance or the economy is a little rougher. That does not impact chiropractic. And that's a fact, because with healthcare, so here's fact number one. When it comes to healthcare, it's been well proven healthcare is not impacted by the economy. When people are sick, when they're in pain, if they don't like their appearance, if they're clear, they must do something to prevent cancer or disease, they will spend the money. You're not going to suffer and die because times are tough. You're going to find the cash somehow to do something about the problems you face now or where you're headed if you don't do something about it in the future. That's just a fact. Fact number two about right now, today, because if you spend too much time on social media, watching too much news, then you would believe we are in a full-blown recession, that people don't have any money, that people aren't spending, and that's just flat out wrong. It's just not facts. If you look at the facts, I actually pulled this statistic up coming into this training, that over the last 4 months, spending has just kept going up. People are spending more and more and more money the last 4 months. And in July, which is the month prior to me filming this episode, in July, more was spent than the previous 4 months. So the fact that it's been going up is a truth, but actually they're spending more now than ever. So if recently you've been told by a patient, I don't have the money, the reality is they're spending it. They're just not spending it with you. And so that's always been the case. I live here in Disney. We're right around the corner from Disney World, and it's packed. I mean, their wokeness, I think, is impacting some of their finances currently, but you still have an hour wait at Space Mountain at Disney World right now, even though it costs $1 billion to bring your family down here. So people are still spending money. We still got millions of people coming to Orlando every month for a vacation. It's just whether or not they'll spend it with you. And that's a matter of the steps we're about to go through and take here. So some quick background. The last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time in regenerative medicine, and now we're beginning to work with assisted living facilities. So I've seen day in and day out the future when you don't take care of your problems yesterday. So for years, I've been that way in chiropractic and said to people, listen, if you don't take care of this now, where is it going to be? That's a question I ask every patient. If we don't take care of that now, where is it going to be in 90 days? Where is it going to be in 6 months? Where will you be in a year? Like, where's this going to be if you don't take care of this today? So they can really understand that this is an active problem that, if not taken care of, is going to be devastating, because people don't fear a slow-moving disaster. Write that one down if you don't know that one. People don't fear a slow-moving disaster. That's why if you go to the airport, there's still a huge line at McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and Burger King and all the fast food there, because it's not going to kill you now. I can keep eating it every day and every week. I'm not dead yet. That's why people smoke. That's why people drink. It's not going to kill me today. They don't fear a slow-moving disaster. So I have to bring it up to a level of consciousness so that people will take action. They don't become conscious of the future. They won't act. And so I ask that series of questions so that they are thinking about the future. Now, I've also seen the future. So I've gotten in my time travel machine by working in regen and working within the assisted living facilities. And I've seen you in the future. When I look at that L5 now on that x-ray, when I look at that hip or that cervical spine x-ray now, I'm seeing the people later at the assisted living facility in the walkers, in the wheelchairs, bent over because their spine is decayed and frozen together, immobile, no longer dependent, or now no longer independent, now fully dependent on others, peeing themselves on 15, 20 medications, unable to chew or leave their room. I was in an assisted living facility yesterday, and this guy came out and he's just so happy to see me. I'm like, hey, great to see you. He goes, I'm out of my cave. I made it out of my cave today. And if you've never been to an assisted living facility, your cave is your room, where some of these people never leave. That's the future when they don't take care of their chiropractic problem now. And so I've seen that, and I'm going to warn you about that. We talk a lot about the roar of the falls. If you are in a boat and you are 9 feet from the edge of the falls and you have no motor and no oars, it's over. And so it's my job to save your life by getting you act now so it doesn't end up over. Because for those assisted living facility people, we're just there trying to make life livable, create a little bit more mobility, create some stability, keep them out of the hospital, keep them out of long-term care and memory care. That's why we're there. We have hearts of compassion to save them from even more devastation. But man, if they just said yes to that chiropractic plan 20 years ago and maintained their spine the last 20 years, they wouldn't be there in the first place. They'd still be an independent person who's able to fulfill a purpose. And that's what we got to do now. So when they're saying no to you, you got to think of that future, because it's not pretty when they say no. And when they leave you rather than maintaining their spine, it gets really, really ugly. So once again, it's not a recession of money, because the cost of assisted living is $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month. Long-term care is $9,000, $10,000 a month. So they're going to be spending the cash eventually. So it's not a financial thing. It's a recession of thought. It's again, not a recession of money. That you got to keep going back to that. So I wanted to give a patient example so that you can kind of see something that it went poorly for me. I realized the mistakes I made and I fixed it. So if you understand what you're supposed to do, then you can also realize when you've made a mistake and try to correct it. So in this particular example, when I went down again, I go Wednesday, I had 17 people to go through. So I kind of went through a couple kind of quick and had this one go really wrong, and it bothered me because, again, I see the future. I know where this is headed, and I can't live with that. I can't live with letting a life go. To me, it's not the ones. It's like The Guardian when Kevin Costner was asked, how many did you save? And he says 12. And well, it's not a lot. Well, that's because those are the ones I lost. Those are the ones I count. And it really matters to me when I lose one, because I know I can get them all if I do it right. So I immediately stop. I look back at how I communicated what was going on. We got him back in there. We fixed it. And then he started and actually prepaid. So I like to use this example. And this is pretty recent. So here was his excuses as to why he didn't start. First, he said, first it was the structure. So we talk about the structure of communication, and the structure lacked proximity. So this proximity term is really important. Since I'm only there once a week, he had actually been evaluated the week before. So it was a full 7 days. So you lose all the urgency and all the focus and everything that I had gotten going the week before. It was lost by the time he came in. So proximity is important. The smartest thing to do is if we evaluate them on Monday, they come back Tuesday for the results, because that's urgency. Oh my gosh, look what we found. This has gotten too far. We found a lot of very significant problems. You need to be back at our very first appointment tomorrow to get on top of this. Just like, if they had found cancer, heart disease. Once again, because I see the future, because I've been in the time machine here and I'm in it every week, I've seen the future. And this is cancer. This is heart disease. Because if you don't do it now, the only difference between heart disease and cancer and subluxation is time. So if we don't do something now, that's your future. So we got to do something now, get in now, just like if we had found cancer, just like if we had found heart disease on that first visit, get in right away. So we broke proximity. The second thing is that, and I live in Disney, as I mentioned. And so all of your top timeshares are here. So the only reason you go is because you're getting the free Disney tickets. That's why people go. But one thing they'll tell you is if you don't bring your spouse, no free Disney tickets, because we know that you can't make a decision about your vacation future, a financial decision about being part of our program. You can't make that without the spouse there. So when you're talking about, especially ours, where we have these, 5,000 or 5-figure plus care plans, you're not making that decision without the other financial decision makers in the room. And so this guy said, when we're done, great, I got to ask my wife. So I'm like, of course you have to ask your wife. And we didn't make sure the spouse was there. The last two things he said that are also really critical when you're thinking about your communication. He said, you're suggesting I go into debt for this. And this was like my care. Like I was trying to sell him something that was going to put him in debt. That's a bad position to be in. This no longer was about his health. It was about what I was selling. So the term for this really rattled around in my brain for days, because I'm like, my gosh, how did we end up there? And then finally he said, I'm 68. Is this really useful? Like, is there really anything I could do now being 68? So I knew this guy really needed it. I knew where he was headed. I know his daughter is somebody we work with in one of the facilities we do a lot of talks and screenings at. So she's the one who got him in. And so I didn't want to let her down. And so we stayed on top of him. And I was all over that. We got to get you back in with your spouse. We're going to do this. So we called 3-4 times. In fact, he tried to use like the excuse of being sick. I'm like, wear a mask. I don't care. Just get in here. Because that was this thing. I don't want to get you guys sick. I'm like, just get in there. Can I wear a mask? Sure. Just, I'm not wearing a mask, but I don't care if you wear a helmet. Just let's get you back in here. So he comes back in and we fix it all. He comes in with his wife and I fix my communication, and they prepay. And not only they prepay, they drive to the bank, pull out the cash and pay with cash, because they didn't want, back to the debt thing. They wanted to fix it. And not go into debt and do it right. So let me just walk through a few of the things we went through. It's 3 steps to wrap this call up. So first of all, again, the structure, the decision maker's there. And in fact, she ultimately is the one. He said, well, what do you think? And she said, what do I think? It's your body. And here again, why it's so important to have the decision maker there. She says, but I'll tell you, I have to do everything on my own. I'm living by myself with this man who lays in bed all day, sick and in pain and without any energy. So, for me, you should do it, but it's your body. He goes, what about the money? She goes, we have the money. She goes, and you saw the prepay. We're prepaying. We're not going to spend an extra $1,000 when we could just prepay it. Doesn't make any sense to not prepay it. We'll just go get the money right now. So much for not having the spouse there. She's the one who closed the deal and decided on the money thing. The second thing is that a lot of you you're afraid of the money conversation, but people are making a financial decision. So you have to have a financial conversation. And so I said to him, and again, with his wife there, said the average person who has your insurance, they had VA, I'm told spends with a condition like yours with, having to take medications regularly for both your back, and he has like this thyroid condition, that you're spending cash. Like you're not, this is, you're telling me you can't afford this, but you're sick and it's costing you money. How much are you spending per year? I've heard it's around $2,000 cash out of pocket a year for somebody in your situation. And the wife confirmed it. She said, yeah, it's $2,000 a year that we've been spending, but with the problem advancing, it's going to be more. And that's where I got into it with him. As I talked about before, we talk about the future. So I said, let me ask you a question. Based on how you're feeling and how you're degenerating, where do you think you'll be in 3 months if we don't do this and get you well? And he said, it's going to be worse. And I looked at her and said, and how much more expensive? She goes, yeah, the cost will grow as he's needed more dosing and more medication. It gets more expensive, more visits to the doctor, more expensive. And so let me ask you this question. Where would it be in 6 months? And I'm saying it like that because, again, I'm trying to save their life. I'm pounding on the door of the 15th floor of the hotel that's on fire. I'm confronting, but it's not confronting. It's saving a life. So where's it going to be in 6 months? And he says, in 6 months, he goes, to be honest, I'll step in front of a truck. I can't do this for 6 more months. And I'm like, boy, you were telling me you didn't want to do it because of, the money and everything else. I'm like, it doesn't sound like it's an option. He's like, it's really not. I go, let me ask you a question, both in terms of how you're feeling, what it's costing. Where will you be in a year? And she's like, thousands of dollars. He's like, again, in a year, I'll have been dead for 6 months. I said, the other thing is, you're 68 and you'd said, why do it at 68? Well, obviously your wife is saying she needs you. I know your daughter needs you. The other thing is financially, if we're talking about the numbers going up, in 10 years, you'll have spent, $30,000, $40,000, where we can fix it right now for $11,000 and less if you prepay. So it just doesn't make any sense financially. And listen, I care about you and your family. I don't want you dead in 6 months. I don't want you stepping in front of a bus. I want you to live a great life right now. And so all that includes the third part. So the first part is the structure. The second part is you have to have a financial conversation. And as you notice, I'm talking about the consequences to the family. That's the third part. The family. I'm talking about the consequences in the future. I'm talking about where this thing is headed, both economically and in terms of what their life is going to look like. And again, I'm putting them in that time machine with me to show them this is where you don't want to end up. And boy, do I wish somebody had done that for the people I see every day in that assisted living facility. I've had members of my family, my mom, my grandmother end up in assisted living. And if somebody could have shaken their tree and confronted them 30 years earlier when I was a kid and they're sitting there smoking and degenerating in pain and pounding medications, if somebody could have saved their life, pounded on that hotel room door, bursted into that house that's on fire and confronted them and done it the right way, communicated the right way, not had a recession in their mind or thought there was some sort of economic issue and busted through, they could have saved my family's life, just like you could save the lives of the people coming to see you and not ever experience any changes in your practice despite the economics, the president, or what they might call a recession that's going on out there. Bless you guys. Hope this helped. Put it to work. Remember who you are.